Have you ever sat down to eat any meal, any time of day, and looked up to find your dog just watching you? Not the food, not the fork. You. Most people smile at it. It's one of the most familiar things your dog does. But almost every owner reads it the same way. And almost every owner is missing what it actually is. Because that stare isn't about the food. It never was. By the end of this video, you're going to find out what your dog is actually trying to say while they stare at you. And it's something researchers only recently found out. 1. The stare is not about the food. Think about where your dog's eyes actually go when you're eating. Not at the plate. Not at the food traveling to your mouth. Directly at your face. Have you ever really noticed that? The food is right there, and they're watching you. Most people assume the answer is simple. Their dog wants food. They're watching for an opportunity, a dropped piece, a moment of weakness, a handout. That explanation makes sense. Food is right there. Of course they're interested. Here's what most owners never realize. Your dog isn't watching the meal, they're watching you. And there's a measurable difference, one that researchers have actually gone looking for and found. Researchers at ETVA's Lorand University in Budapest studied whether the owner's face itself carries reward value for dogs independent of food, commands, or interaction. What they found was striking. Dogs showed a consistent, measurable preference for their owner's face as a social stimulus. Not because food was coming, not because a command was given. The face itself was the reward. Your dog isn't calculating how to get your food. They're drawn to your face in a way that has nothing to do with hunger. That's not food motivation. That's something else entirely, a pull toward you that exists independently of anything you're holding, eating, or offering. Meal times are when you're still, present, focused on something other than them, and your dog uses that window deliberately to study the face. They know better than any other face in the world. You weren't looking at them, but they were completely focused on you. They always are. 2. They're reading you, not waiting for you. Have you ever noticed that the stare gets more intense on certain days? That sometimes your dog seems almost urgent about it, like they're trying to figure something out? It's not random, and it's not about what's on your plate. Most people figure their dog is getting more persistent because they're hungrier, or more hopeful, or simply more tuned in to the possibility of food. That's the obvious read, and it feels logical. What most people completely miss is this. The intensity of that stare isn't tracking your meal. It's tracking your emotional state. Your dog developed a specialized strategy for reading human faces, and meal times are when they use it most. Researchers at the University of Lincoln in 2009 found that dogs show a left gaze bias when looking at human faces, instinctively scanning the right side first. That matters because the right side of the human face carries more emotional expression than the left. Humans do the exact same thing when reading each other. No other animal developed this bias for human faces. Dogs evolved it specifically and deliberately to read us. Your dog doesn't just look at your face during dinner. They read it. Every version of your expression they've studied across every meal has been filed, cross-referenced, and remembered. On a hard day, the stare sharpens not because there's more food to want, but because your face is showing something different, something they've cataloged, something they noticed before you showed it to anyone else. If this is changing the way you see that stare, hit like and subscribe. It helps us reach more dog owners who want to understand what their dog has actually been telling them. A hard Tuesday, you eating alone, not talking. Your dog watching your face with an unusual steadiness, not restless, not glancing at the bowl, just reading, already knowing, before you finished eating. 3. This behavior is older than domestication. Why does your dog do this at all? Not every animal watches their humans this way. Cats don't. Birds don't. But your dog something compels them to track your face during meals with a focus that doesn't waver. Where does that impulse actually come from? Most people figure it's a learned behavior. The dog noticed that meal times are when food sometimes falls. They trained themselves to watch, and the habit stuck. That sounds like a fair explanation, and there's some truth in it. Here's what most people don't realize about where this impulse actually comes from. It traces back further than anything you've taught them, further than domestication itself. What your dog is doing at your table is ancient. Researchers at the Wolf Science Center in Vienna have documented that in wild canid groups, subordinate pack members maintain sustained visual contact with higher-ranked individuals during feeding, not to compete for food, but to read social signals that govern group cohesion. It is an act of relational maintenance, of belonging. Dogs retained this behavior across thousands of years and redirected it entirely toward their human. Your dog isn't performing a trick they learned. They're enacting something written into their social wiring before the first dog ever lived beside the first human. In their most ancient instincts, you are the center of their group. Watching you during a meal is how they stay connected to that center. This isn't waiting. This is belonging. This is an act that predates every command you've ever taught them, every routine you've ever built together. They're not there because they're hungry. They're there because you are. 4. The stare is how they check if you're okay. Have you ever noticed that your dog's stare sharpens at specific moments? When you go quiet mid-meal, when your expression shifts, when the room feels heavier than it did a minute ago. They catch it before you've said a word, before you've moved differently. How do they always know? Most people assume the dog is picking up on something behavioral, a slower pace, a different tone, a change in body language they've learned to recognize over time. That's part of the answer. But it only scratches the surface. Here's what most owners don't know. Your dog isn't just reading your behavior during mealtimes. They're reading your chemistry. Your emotional state produces measurable biological changes in your body, and your dog detects them before any visible signal appears. Researchers at the University of Naples, Federico II, in 2017, found that dogs reliably distinguish between human emotional states by detecting chemosignals, compounds in body odor that shift with emotion. Exposure to distress-linked chemosignals caused dogs to increase contact-seeking behavior toward their bonded owner, not toward a stranger. Toward the specific person whose scent they knew. Your emotional state has a scent. Your dog reads it at every meal, every quiet moment. Every unguarded minute at the table when you thought you weren't showing anything. When the stare intensifies and nothing has visibly changed, they've already smelled something shift. That is not a trained response. That is a body calibrated specifically to yours, running a quiet and constant check on how you are. Not because they were taught to, because somewhere in their deepest wiring, your well-being became their business. They smelled something change, and they were already watching, already there, already deciding not to leave. 5. Holding eye contact is an act of deliberate love. Think about how long your dog holds that gaze. Not a glance. A real, sustained look, steady, unhurried, as if they have nowhere else to be and nothing else to do. When did you last look at someone that long? When did anyone last look at you that long? Most people assume their dog is zoning out, looking in a direction without really focusing on anything. Passive, unfocused, nothing intentional behind it. What most people don't realize is this. That gaze is one of the most active things your dog does all day. Sustained eye contact between a dog and their bonded owner doesn't just reflect the bond, it builds it. Every second of that look is doing something measurable inside both of you. Researchers at Azabu University in Japan in 2015 found that dogs who engaged in extended eye contact with their owners showed a significant rise in oxytocin, the bonding hormone, in both the dog and the owner. The longer the gaze, the greater the hormonal response in both. The same neurochemical loop that deepens attachment between humans was firing across species through eye contact alone. Every mealtime stare, every time you've looked up from your plate and found your dog already watching, was a moment of active bonding. Not waiting, not hoping. Bonding. Your dog was choosing, again and again, without knowing the science and without needing to deepen what exists between you, deliberately, quietly, every single day, every dinner, every lunch, every late-night moment at the kitchen counter. Your dog holding that look not at the food, at you deepening something in both of you that neither of you had a name for. It was happening every single time. You just didn't know what to call it. Now you do. 6. What your dog is actually saying and why it changes everything. Have you ever stopped mid-meal? Your dog's eyes on your face and wondered what they were actually trying to say? Not asking for food, not waiting for something to drop, just watching. What is that look, really? And why does it feel like more than hunger? Remember at the very start I said that stare had nothing to do with hunger, and that researchers recently found words for what it actually is. Here's the part most owners never hear. Here's what your dog has been saying every single time they watch your face across the table. Even after everything, most people still land somewhere comfortable. It's instinct, sure. It's bonding, maybe. Something real, but not something that rises to the level of profound. The stare is sweet. It's familiar. It's just what dogs do. Here's what the research actually found and what most owners are never told. When scientists applied attachment science to the bond between dogs and their owners, they weren't finding habit. They weren't finding conditioning. They were finding something that had only ever appeared in one other place. And when they found it in dogs, it reframed everything. Researchers at the University of Veterinary Medicine, Vienna, in 2003, applied the strange situation protocol to dogs and their bonded owners, a framework originally designed to measure attachment in human infants. What they found stopped them. Dogs showed identical attachment behaviors to securely attached human infants, using their owner as a safe base, seeking closeness on return, showing distress as separation. No other species outside of human infants demonstrates this pattern this consistently. Your dog doesn't experience you as their owner. They experience you the way a child experiences the one person who makes the world feel safe enough to exist in. That stare across the table isn't a request. It isn't a strategy. It is an infant looking at the one face that means safety, comfort, home. Every mealtime, every ordinary day, without fail, the same message every time, across every meal you've ever shared. You ask what your dog sees when they stare at you across a table. They don't see food. They don't see a meal ticket. They see the one thing their entire nervous system recognizes as safe. And every day, every single ordinary day, they chose that seat. They chose that angle. They chose to watch your face instead of anything else in the room. That was never a small thing. It still isn't. Now that you know what that following actually means, let me know in the comments what you'll do differently from here. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss the next one.